My hands trembled as I read the words in my husband's journal. Eleanor, if you're reading this, beware of Jeffrey. Our son has been trying to poison me. But how could that be possible? Jeffrey was our only child, our pride and joy for 45 years. And Robert had died of heart failure, hadn't he? I never imagined that at 72 I would become a detective investigating my husband's death and my own son's conspiracy. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. The Christmas candles flickered against the frosted windows of our home of 30 years. The dining table I had so carefully set remained untouched, the roast turkey growing cold, the cranberry sauce congealing in its crystal dish. Robert's favorite pecan pie sat in the center, just as it had for the past 50 Christmases we'd shared, except this year, his chair was empty. I glanced at my phone for the 20th time that evening. No new messages. Jeffrey and his wife Vanessa had promised they would try to make it. I had called 2 weeks earlier, my voice catching as I extended the invitation. Jeffrey, it would mean so much if you and Vanessa could come for Christmas dinner. The house feels so quiet without your father. There had been a pause on the other end, followed by Jeffrey's distracted voice. We'll see, Mom. Vanessa's parents invited us too. In the background, I could hear Vanessa say something, her voice muffled, but I had clung to that "we'll see" like a lifeline. Surely my only child wouldn't leave me alone on my first Christmas without Robert. I wasn't always this desperate for my son's attention. There was a time when I had my own identity beyond being Jeffrey's mother. As a cardiac nurse at Mercy Hospital, I had saved lives, mentored younger nurses, been respected for my expertise. But I had set it all aside when Jeffrey was born. And then again, when Robert's pharmaceutical company began to expand, someone needed to manage our home, to be there when Jeffrey returned from school, to host the dinner parties crucial for Robert's business connections. I never regretted those choices, not really, but sitting alone at our dining table on Christmas night, I wondered if I had given too much of myself away. The clock chimed 8. The candles had burned halfway down. The special occasion china the set Robert had given me on our 25th anniversary gleamed in the soft light. Then my phone buzzed. I snatched it up, hope flaring momentarily in my chest. It was a text from Jeffrey. Sorry, Mom, spending Christmas at Vanessa's parents'. Maybe next year. No Merry Christmas. No explanation. Just that. I set the phone down, my lips pressed tight to hold back the tears threatening to spill. It wasn't about the meal. It wasn't even about Christmas. It was about being seen, about mattering to someone. As I stared at Robert's empty chair, memories flooded back not just of my husband, but of Jeffrey as a child, the sweet boy who once made me handmade Mother's Day cards, the teenager who grew increasingly distant as Robert pushed him toward academic excellence, the tense family dinners when Jeffrey and Robert would argue about the family business. Had I been blind to what was happening between them in those final months of Robert's life? He had seemed troubled, distant. I had attributed it to his worsening heart condition, but now I wondered if there had been something more. When I placed my phone down, a terrifying thought flashed through my mind. Was this the first time Jeffrey had treated me this way, or had I been ignoring the signs for years later that night? I found myself drifting toward Robert's study. I hadn't stepped foot in there since the funeral 3 months ago. The room still smelled faintly of his cologne sandalwood with a hint of citrus. His reading glasses lay folded on the desk, a bookmark still marking his place in the history of modern medicine. I ran my fingers along the polished surface of his mahogany desk, remembering how he would sit here late into the night, reviewing research papers or financial reports. It was then that I noticed something unusual, a small drawer I didn't remember seeing before. It had a tiny brass lock. Robert's keys still hung on the hook by the door. With trembling hands, I tried each one until finally, the lock clicked open. Inside lay a sealed envelope marked, "To Eleanor, open only if you're alone." The envelope felt heavy in my hands. I carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I'm deeply sorry for leaving you to face the world alone. But I couldn't leave without providing you a sanctuary, somewhere Jeffrey cannot reach you. There's a farmhouse in Willow Creek, about 2 hours north. I purchased it in your name alone, and I've established a private trust that no one, not even Jeffrey, can touch. The key is in this envelope, along with the address and necessary documents. You've given your whole life to others. It's time you put yourself first. Go there when you're ready. Inside that house is everything you'll need to start over. If you choose to, there's also something else you should know. I've been keeping a journal of my suspicions. You'll find it in the locked bottom drawer of this desk. The key is taped to the back of our wedding photo on my nightstand. I hope you never feel as alone as you must feel right now. My love, you deserve more. Always yours." Robert, I read the letter twice, my eyes filling with tears. A farmhouse, a trust in my name, and what suspicions had Robert been documenting? I went to our bedroom and found the key exactly where he said it would be. When I returned to the study and opened the bottom drawer, I found a leather-bound journal. The first entry was dated 6 months before Robert's death, June 15th. My cardiac symptoms have worsened significantly this past month. Dr. Sullivan seems puzzled, says the progression doesn't match my previous medical history. Mentioned it might be a reaction to my medication. I've started to wonder if there's more to this than natural causes. June 28th. Overheard Jeffrey and Vanessa arguing about money again. Caught the phrases, "when the old man dies," and "our inheritance." Eleanor doesn't know about Jeffrey's embezzlement from the company last year. I covered it up to protect her from the truth about our son. Maybe that was a mistake. July 10th. Started noticing a slight bitter taste in my evening medication. Have been pretending to take it, then disposing of it. My symptoms improved slightly. I've kept samples to have tested discreetly. The entries continued, each more disturbing than the last. Robert had begun to suspect that Jeffrey, or possibly Vanessa, was tampering with his heart medication. He'd even consulted a private toxicologist who found traces of a compound that would worsen his cardiac condition over time. The final entry was dated just 3 days before his death. December 2nd, the trust for Eleanor is finalized. The farmhouse is ready. I've instructed Angela to watch for Eleanor if anything happens to me. I should tell Eleanor everything, but I can't bear to destroy her relationship with Jeffrey. Perhaps I'm a coward, or perhaps I'm trying to protect her one last time. If I'm wrong about all this, she need never know. But if I'm right, the entry ended there. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the journal. I thought back to Robert's final days, how he had insisted on taking his medication himself, how he had seemed to be improving slightly before the sudden heart attack that took him. I rushed to our bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet. Robert's heart medication was still there. I hadn't been able to dispose of it yet. I examined the pills closely under the bright bathroom light. They looked normal, but when I sniffed them, there was a faint, bitter odor that shouldn't have been present. But when I opened Robert's pill box, what I found made my blood run cold. These weren't the heart medications Dr. Sullivan had prescribed for my husband. The next morning, I packed a small suitcase. I included essentials, Robert's journal, and the suspicious medication sealed in a plastic bag. As I closed our bedroom door, I caught sight of a family photo on the dresser, Jeffrey's college graduation. Robert stood proud in his tailored suit, his hand on Jeffrey's shoulder. I was beaming beside them. my heart full of hope for our son's future. What had happened to that bright-eyed young man? When had money and status become more important than family? The drive to Willow Creek took just over 2 hours. As the landscape shifted from suburban streets to rolling hills dotted with evergreens, my mind raced with questions. Was I overreacting? Could there be an innocent explanation for everything? Yet every time these doubts surfaced, I remembered Robert's meticulous nature. He would never make such accusations without substantial evidence. And the altered medication was something I had seen with my own eyes. The GPS announced my arrival as I turned onto a gravel driveway lined with old maple trees. At the end stood a charming two-story farmhouse with white clapboard siding and green shutters. A wraparound porch embraced the structure like welcoming arms. Snow blanketed the surrounding fields, pristine and untouched. It was so quiet I could hear the soft ticking of the car's cooling engine when I turned it off. The brass key slid perfectly into the lock. With a gentle click, the door swung open to reveal a warm, inviting interior. Someone had been here recently. The house was heated, and there were fresh flowers on the entryway table. A note sat propped against the vase. Welcome home, Eleanor. I've stocked the basics in the kitchen. Call me if you need anything. Angela. Who was Angela? The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. I explored the house, my heart aching with each discovery. Robert had thought of everything. The living room featured comfortable furniture arranged around a river rock fireplace. Bookshelves held many of my favorite novels. The kitchen was equipped with high-quality cookware, including the brand of copper pots I had always admired but considered too extravagant. Upstairs, the master bedroom took my breath away. A queen-sized bed faced large windows overlooking the snow-covered meadow. The adjoining bathroom had a clawfoot tub positioned to enjoy the same view. But it was the third bedroom that truly surprised me. Robert had converted it into a small medical room, complete with a hospital-grade examination table, supply cabinets, and modern equipment. It was as if he knew I might want to practice nursing again. Tears welled in my eyes. Even in death, Robert was caring for me, encouraging me to reclaim parts of myself I had set aside. As I walked back downstairs, I noticed a door I had missed. It led to a home office with a desk, computer, and filing cabinets. On the desk sat a framed photograph of Robert with a woman in her early 40s. I didn't recognize her, but they appeared comfortable together, smiling at the camera. Beside the photo was a handwritten note. Call Angela. She knows everything. My heart nearly stopped. Was this the Angela who had left the welcome note? What was her relationship with Robert just then? My phone rang, startling me in the quiet house. Jeffrey's name flashed on the screen. Mom, where are you? His voice sounded irritated. I stopped by the house and you're not there. I needed some time away, I said carefully. To think. You should have told me. I was worried. The concern in his voice almost sounded genuine. Were you? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. You didn't seem worried last night when you canceled Christmas dinner. A pause. That's not fair. Mom, Vanessa's parents had been planning their dinner for weeks. And I had been planning mine for weeks too. Jeffrey, for the first time in years, I didn't immediately apologize for expressing disappointment. Look, we need to talk about Dad's estate. There are some papers you need to sign. I can help manage everything for you. A chill ran through me as I recalled Robert's journal entries. What papers? Exactly. Just standard power of attorney forms. You shouldn't have to worry about financial matters at your age. At my age, as if being 72 somehow made me incapable of managing my own affairs. The Eleanor from yesterday might have acquiesced, but today, with Robert's warnings fresh in my mind, I felt a steely resolve forming. I'm perfectly capable of handling my own finances. Jeffrey, I always have been. Don't be difficult. Mom, Dad would want things handled properly. Yes, I said quietly. I believe he would. I ended the call before he could respond. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from anger. How long had Jeffrey been planning this? How long had he seen me as nothing more than an obstacle to his inheritance? I walked to the kitchen and found the phone number for Angela on a list by the refrigerator. Taking a deep breath, I dialed. Eleanor, the woman answered on the second ring, her voice warm. I've been hoping you'd call. You're Angela, the woman in the photograph with my husband. Yes, Robert told me you might come to Willow Creek eventually. I'm so glad you found your way here. Who are you? How did you know Robert? There was a slight pause. I think this conversation would be better in person. My bakery is just in town, Wilson Street, ironically enough, the Blue Spruce Bakery. I close at 6. Can you come by? I agreed, curiosity overcoming my initial suspicion. I needed answers, and Angela seemed to have them. The town of Willow Creek was small but charming, with a main street lined with locally owned businesses decorated for the holidays. The Blue Spruce Bakery was easy to find. Its windows steamed up from the warmth inside. As I pushed open the door, a bell tinkled softly. The aroma of fresh bread and cinnamon enveloped me. Behind the counter stood a woman in her early 40s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, the same woman from the photograph. Eleanor, she said with a gentle smile, I'd recognize you anywhere. Robert showed me so many photos. She came around the counter and extended her hand. I'm Angela Reyes. We sat at a small table in the back of the now empty bakery, mugs of hot tea between us. I should explain, Angela began. 15 years ago, I was admitted to Mercy Hospital with a severe cardiac condition. You were my nurse. I studied her face, trying to place her among the thousands of patients I had cared for. You probably don't remember me, I was just one of many, but you noticed something off about my symptoms and insisted the doctor run additional tests. You saved my life. She took a sip of tea. When I recovered, I moved here to start over. Then about 8 months ago, Robert came into my bakery. He recognized my name from your stories. I still don't understand, I said. Why would Robert contact you? Angela's expression grew serious. He was worried. Eleanor. He believed someone was tampering with his medication. He wanted to create a safe place for you, away from Jeffrey. If his suspicions proved correct. Did he tell you he thought Jeffrey was and I couldn't bring myself to say the word, poisoning him? Angela nodded gravely. Yes, he had evidence results from a lab that analyzed his medication. He gave me copies for safekeeping. She reached beneath the counter and pulled out a sealed envelope. He also left me a USB drive with financial records. He said Jeffrey had been embezzling from the company for years. My heart sank. Why didn't he go to the police? He was gathering more evidence. And Angela hesitated. He couldn't bear to destroy your relationship with your son. He loved you too much to hurt you that way. Tears welled in my eyes. Even in his final months, Robert had been trying to protect me. There's something else you should know. Angela continued. Jeffrey came to Willow Creek about a month ago, asking questions about any property Robert might have purchased here. He seemed desperate. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. How would he even know to look here? I don't know. But Robert was concerned enough that he set up a special trust. The farmhouse and a significant portion of his assets are in your name only, protected from Jeffrey's reach. As Angela continued explaining the details of Robert's arrangements, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced down to see Jeffrey's name. Mom, we need to talk about Dad's estate. I've found some concerning documents. Where are you staying? I'll come to you. When I opened Robert's pill box, what I found made my blood run cold. These weren't the heart medications Dr. Sullivan had prescribed for my husband. I needed help, someone I could trust completely. There was only one person who came to mind: Sam Walker, my closest friend from my nursing days and the most straight-talking person I knew. I called her that evening from the farmhouse. "Eleanor, is everything all right? You sound strange." Sam's familiar voice was instantly concerned. "Sam, I need your help. Can you come to Willow Creek? It's about Robert and Jeffrey." There was no hesitation. "Text me the address. I'll be there tomorrow morning." That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the man I had been married to for 50 years, how even in death, he was still protecting me. And I thought about my son, the baby I had cradled in my arms, the child I had nursed through fevers and heartbreaks. How had we arrived at this point when I finally drifted off? I dreamed of Robert sitting across from me at our dining table, trying to tell me something important while Jeffrey stood in the shadows behind him, watching. I woke with a start at the sound of tires on gravel. Through the bedroom window, I saw Sam's blue sedan pulling up to the house. At 70, Sam was still as formidable as ever, her silver hair cut in a practical bob, her posture military straight as she stepped out of the car. As I opened the front door, she enveloped me in a tight hug. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, pulling back to examine my face. "Now tell me everything." Over coffee at the kitchen table, I showed Sam Roberts' journal, the letter, and the medication I had collected from our bathroom. Sam, who had been a hospital administrator before retirement, examined the pills with a critical eye. "These definitely aren't standard cardiac medication. We should have them tested." "You believe me? Then that something isn't right." Sam's expression softened. "Eleanor, I had concerns about Robert's decline myself. It seemed too rapid, too severe for his diagnosed condition, but I didn't want to add to your grief with suspicions." "Why didn't you say anything? Would you have believed me?" She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You've always seen the best in Jeffrey, even when the rest of us noticed how he changed after marrying Vanessa." I felt a stab of guilt. Had I been so blind? "We need to be strategic." Sam continued. "I have a cousin who's a retired attorney. He can review the trust documents and advise us on next steps. And I know a lab technician who can test these pills discreetly." Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Jeffrey. "Mom, I'm getting worried. Please call me. We need to discuss some urgent matters about Dad's will." Sam read the message over my shoulder and frowned. "Don't respond yet. Let's find out exactly what we're dealing with first." Over the next 2 days, Sam and I worked methodically. Her cousin confirmed that Robert's trust was ironclad. The farmhouse and a substantial investment portfolio were in my name only, with explicit provisions preventing Jeffrey from accessing them. Even more concerning, he discovered that Jeffrey had attempted to file power of attorney paperwork shortly after Robert's death, using what appeared to be a forged signature. "He was trying to take control of your assets," the attorney explained during our video call. "But Robert's trust prevented it. Your husband was very thorough." Meanwhile, the lab results on the medication confirmed our worst fears. The pills contained a compound that would gradually worsen cardiac symptoms, not enough to kill immediately, but sufficient to deteriorate health over time. "This is criminal," Sam said, her voice tight with anger as we reviewed the report. "We should go to the police." I stared out the window at the snow-covered fields, my heart heavy. "He's still my son, Sam. A son who may have contributed to his father's death and is now targeting you." She replied gently. "Eleanor, I understand this is painful, but you need to protect yourself." Before I could respond, we heard a car approaching an expensive black SUV I recognized immediately as Jeffrey's. My stomach tightened with dread. They found me, I whispered. Sam straightened her shoulders. Good. It's time we had this out in the open. Are you ready to face your son? I nodded, though my heart was pounding. Yes, it's time for the truth. As Jeffrey and Vanessa stepped onto the porch, I took a deep breath. The moment had come to confront not just my son, but the parts of myself that had enabled him for far too long. Sam squeezed my hand reassuringly. Remember everything we've learned. Don't let them manipulate you. The doorbell rang, echoing through the farmhouse like a warning. I opened the door to find my son standing there, his tall frame silhouetted against the winter afternoon light. At 45, Jeffrey still had his father's strong jawline and my hazel eyes, though today those eyes were narrowed with suspicion. Beside him stood Vanessa, elegant in a camel-colored cashmere coat, her dark hair swept into a perfect chignon. At 38, she looked every bit the successful PR executive, not a hair out of place despite the long drive. Mom, Jeffrey's voice held a mixture of relief and irritation. Why didn't you tell us where you were going? We've been worried sick. I noticed he didn't hug me or even reach for my hand. Vanessa stood slightly behind him, her calculating gaze taking in the farmhouse. Please, come in, I said, stepping aside. As they entered, I caught the flicker of surprise on Jeffrey's face when he spotted Sam sitting in the living room. Mrs. Walker, he acknowledged stiffly. I didn't realize you were here. Hello, Jeffrey, Sam replied, her voice cool but polite. Vanessa. Vanessa barely nodded, her attention already shifting to the interior of the farmhouse. What is this place, Eleanor? We didn't even know you owned property up here. I gestured for them to sit. I didn't know either, until recently. Robert bought it before he passed. Jeffrey remained standing, hands in the pockets of his expensive wool coat. That's actually why we're here. Mom, there seem to be some irregularities with Dad's estate that we need to discuss. Irregularities, I echoed, my voice steadier than I expected. Yes, Vanessa interjected, placing a manicured hand on Jeffrey's arm. Your husband made some very unusual decisions near the end. We're concerned he wasn't thinking clearly due to his medication. The irony of her statement was almost too much to bear. I exchanged a quick glance with Sam. Why don't we all sit down? I suggested. Would either of you like some tea or coffee? We don't need refreshments, Mom, Jeffrey said impatiently. We need to sort out this mess with Dad's will. He set up some kind of trust that's blocking access to significant assets. I'm sure he didn't intend to complicate things this way. I took a seat in the armchair across from them. Actually, he did intend exactly that. Jeffrey's expression hardened. What are you talking about? Robert was very clear about his wishes, I said carefully. He left this property and certain assets directly to me, outside of the family estate. That doesn't make any sense, Vanessa cut in. Why would he do that unless someone influenced him? Her gaze slid accusingly toward Sam. Sam raised an eyebrow but remained silent. No one influenced him, I replied. In fact, he did it to protect me. Protect you, Jeffrey scoffed. From what? We're your family. The moment had come. I took a deep breath and met my son's eyes directly. He wanted to protect me from you, Jeffrey. The room fell silent. Vanessa's mouth dropped open slightly before she composed herself. Jeffrey stared at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking in tongues. That's absurd, he finally said, his voice low. Why would Dad think I was a threat to you? Perhaps because you tried to file for power of attorney over my affairs just weeks after his funeral, I said, watching his face pale. Using what appears to be a forged signature. Who told you that? Vanessa demanded, her composure slipping. It's a matter of public record, Sam interjected. Eleanor's attorney found the filing. Jeffrey ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of Robert that my heart ached. It was a misunderstanding. The lawyer suggested it would be simpler. Simpler to take control of my finances without my knowledge or consent. I interrupted, a lifetime of deference to my son finally crumbling away. You're twisting this, Vanessa said, her voice rising. We were trying to help. Like you helped Robert with his medication. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Jeffrey's head snapped up. What did you say? I rose slowly and walked to the side table where I'd placed Robert's journal and the lab report. Your father kept a journal in the months before his death. He suspected someone was tampering with his heart medication. That's ridiculous, Jeffrey said quickly, too quickly. Dad was getting paranoid toward the end. The doctor said that could be a side effect of his condition. Is that why he had his medication independently tested? I pushed the lab report across the coffee table. These results show his pills were laced with a compound that would worsen his cardiac symptoms over time. Vanessa grabbed the paper before Jeffrey could reach it, scanning it with widening eyes. This proves nothing, she said, but her voice wavered slightly. It proves that Robert's suspicions weren't paranoia, Sam said. And it explains why he took such extensive measures to protect Eleanor's assets. Jeffrey stood abruptly, pacing to the window, his back to us, shoulders tense. This is insane. You're suggesting that I tried to kill my own father. I don't want to believe it, I said, my voice breaking despite my resolve. But the evidence is troubling. Jeffrey, the tampered medication, your attempt to gain control of my finances, your sudden interest in property Robert might have purchased. He spun around. What are you talking about? You came to Willow Creek a month ago. I said, you were asking about property Robert might have bought here. A flash of surprise crossed his face before he controlled his expression. I was handling Dad's business affairs. I needed to account for all assets. You should have just asked me, I said quietly. Would you have told me about this place? He gestured around the farmhouse. If Robert had wanted you to know, he would have told you himself. Vanessa, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly stood up. This is pointless. Jeffrey, we're wasting our time here. She turned to me, her mask of politeness completely gone. Eleanor, you're clearly confused and being manipulated by your friend here. We came out of concern, but if you're going to make wild accusations— They're not accusations, I interrupted, my voice stronger than I'd ever used with her. They're questions that deserve answers. Jeffrey seemed torn, looking between his wife and me. For a moment, I glimpsed something in his eyes, doubt, perhaps even guilt. But then Vanessa touched his arm, and his expression hardened again. Mom, I don't know what stories you've concocted, but this is beyond ridiculous. Dad died of heart failure. His doctors confirmed it. Heart failure accelerated by what was in his medication. Sam interjected. Jeffrey ignored her, focusing solely on me. I came here today to help you. There are tax implications and estate matters that need attention. But if you're going to side with conspiracies instead of your own son, then I don't know what else to say. I felt a profound sadness watching him, this man who had once been my sweet little boy. Where had we gone wrong? Had Robert's demanding nature pushed Jeffrey too far? Had my overcompensation for my postpartum depression made him feel entitled to everything without effort? There's one more thing you should know, I said, my voice softer now. The trust Robert established has a special provision. The bulk of his personal fortune will go to charity unless you meet certain conditions. This caught both their attention. Vanessa stepped forward. What conditions? You need to demonstrate that you've been caring for me for at least 2 years. Genuinely caring for me, not just managing my finances. Jeffrey's expression was unreadable. Dad put conditions on my inheritance. He wanted to ensure I would be looked after. I said, he valued family loyalty above all else. Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. So we're supposed to play nursemaid to you for 2 years to access what rightfully belongs to Jeffrey? That's extortion. It's a father trying to protect his wife and teach his son what truly matters. Sam countered. The tension in the room was palpable. Jeffrey stood frozen, his internal conflict evident in his clenched jaw and troubled eyes. How much, he finally asked. How much is in the trust? I felt my heart break a little more. Even now, that was his primary concern. Enough to ensure you'd never have to work again, I said quietly. But that's not the point. Jeffrey, then what is the point? Mom, his voice rose in frustration. Dad always did this set-up tests, created hoops for me to jump through, even from the grave. He's still trying to control everything. He was trying to protect what matters. I said, family, loyalty, the values he thought he had instilled in you. Vanessa tugged at Jeffrey's arm. We don't need this. Your father's company is doing well. We can contest the trust, find a way around it. No, you can't, Sam said firmly. The trust is ironclad. Robert made sure of that. Jeffrey stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You really believe I could have hurt Dad, don't you? The raw pain in his voice nearly broke my resolve. I don't want to believe it, I whispered. But I need to understand what happened. The medication was tampered with. Jeffrey, that's a fact, not a theory. A tense silence fell over the room. Outside, snow had begun to fall again, soft flakes drifting past the windows. We should go, Vanessa said suddenly. This is getting us nowhere. Jeffrey hesitated, still looking at me. For a brief moment, I thought I saw the son I remembered vulnerable, uncertain. But then his expression closed off. Fine, he said flatly. But this isn't over. Mom, the will, the trust, there are legal questions that need answers. My lawyer is handling everything, I said. If you have questions, you can direct them to him. Jeffrey's laugh was bitter. So that's it after everything. You're just shutting me out. No, I said gently. I'm asking for the truth. His eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might break, might tell me everything. But then Vanessa was at his side, her hand on his back, guiding him toward the door. We'll be in touch, she said coldly. Come on, Jeffrey. As they walked out, Jeffrey paused at the threshold. Without turning back, he said, I loved Dad. You know, whatever you think of me, I never wanted him gone. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded final somehow. Sam and I sat in silence for several minutes, listening to the sound of their SUV backing out of the driveway, tires crunching on snow and gravel. Are you okay? Sam finally asked. I wasn't sure how to answer. Was I okay? My son, my only child, had just walked out after I'd essentially accused him of contributing to his father's death. Yet I felt oddly calm, as if a fog had lifted. I think I will be, I said. For the first time in years, I'm seeing clearly. Sam squeezed my hand. Jeffrey seemed genuinely shocked about some of it, especially the lab results. I noticed that too, I admitted. But if not Jeffrey, then who? Sam's expression was grim. I think we both know the answer to that. Vanessa. The thought had been forming in the back of my mind since I'd seen her reaction to the lab report, that momentary flicker of alarm before she'd composed herself. We need more evidence, I said, before we make any accusations. Sam nodded. I agree, but for now, I think you should stay here, away from them both. at least until we understand exactly what happened. That night, after Sam had gone to bed in the guest room, I sat alone by the fireplace, Robert's journal open in my lap. I reread his entries, looking for clues I might have missed. His suspicions had focused primarily on Jeffrey, but there were occasional mentions of Vanessa, her expensive tastes, her influence over our son, her constant questions about Robert's will and the company's future. My phone buzzed with a text message. I expected it to be from Jeffrey, perhaps with more demands or accusations. Instead, it was from Angela. Need to talk urgently. Jeffrey and Vanessa came to the bakery after leaving your place. She was asking strange questions about you and Robert. Be careful. Can meet tomorrow morning. A chill ran through me. What was Vanessa up to now? I replied quickly, agreeing to meet at the bakery at 9 a.m. Then I sent a message to Sam, who was just down the hall, briefing her on this new development. Sleep eluded me that night. I kept replaying the confrontation with Jeffrey and Vanessa, analyzing their reactions, their words. Jeffrey's parting statement, "I love Dad," haunted me. There had been genuine pain in his voice. Was it possible he was telling the truth, that he hadn't known about the tampered medication the next morning? Sam and I arrived at the Blue Spruce Bakery just as Angela was unlocking the front door. She ushered us in quickly, glancing nervously up and down the quiet street before locking the door behind us. "I didn't want to say too much over text," she explained, leading us to the same back table where we'd spoken before. "But after Jeffrey and Vanessa left your place yesterday, they came here." "Together?" Sam asked. Angela shook her head. "No, that's what was strange. Jeffrey dropped Vanessa off. She came in alone, asking about Robert's visits here. She wanted to know how often he came, what we talked about." "What did you tell her?" I asked. "Nothing important. I said he was a regular customer who enjoyed our pastries." Angela twisted her hands nervously. "But then she started asking about you, Eleanor. She wanted to know if Robert had left anything with me for you." My breath caught. The USB drive with the financial records. "I denied it, of course," Angela continued. "But she didn't believe me. She became insistent, said there could be compensation for my cooperation. She tried to bribe you." Sam's voice was sharp with anger. Angela nodded. "When I refused, she got nasty, said things could become difficult for my business if I didn't help her." "That's threatening a witness," Sam muttered. "Witness to what?" I asked. Sam and Angela exchanged a glance. "Eleanor," Sam said gently, "I think we need to consider the possibility that Vanessa was more involved in Robert's death than we initially thought, possibly without Jeffrey's knowledge." The idea settled like a stone in my stomach. "You think she tampered with Robert's medication, but why? Money?" Angela said simply. "Robert told me their finances weren't good. Jeffrey made some bad investments, and they're deeply in debt." This was news to me. Jeffrey never mentioned financial problems. "Would he?" Sam asked. "He's always been proud. And Vanessa? Well, her lifestyle isn't exactly modest." I thought about their expensive home, Vanessa's designer clothes, their luxury vacations. Had it all been a facade? Were they struggling beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life? "There's something else," Angela said hesitantly. When Vanessa left, she dropped a piece of paper. I'm not sure she realized it. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a folded note. "It looks like, well, see for yourself." I unfolded the paper. It was a printout of instructions for creating a digital signature, along with what appeared to be a practice version of my own signature. My blood ran cold. "She's planning to forge my signature." "For what?" Angela asked. "Could be anything." Sam replied grimly. "Bank accounts, property transfers, new power of attorney documents." "We need to alert your attorney," Angela said. And maybe the police. I stared at the forged signature, feeling sick. This was beyond financial manipulation. This was calculated identity theft. There's one more thing you should know, Angela said, her voice dropping lower. Jeffrey came back for Vanessa after about an hour. They argued in the car outside. I couldn't hear everything, but Jeffrey seemed upset. He kept saying something about going too far, and this has to stop. A flicker of hope sparked in my chest. You think he might not be part of this, or he's having second thoughts, Sam suggested cautiously. Either way, it creates an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? I asked. To drive a wedge between them, Sam said. If Jeffrey isn't fully on board with whatever Vanessa is planning, we might be able to reach him. I thought about my son, the real Jeffrey, not the cold, distant man he'd become. The boy who'd once stayed up all night with his science project, determined to get it perfect. The teenager who'd driven 2 hours to bring me flowers on my birthday when he was away at college. Could that person still exist somewhere beneath the surface? How would we even approach him? I asked. After yesterday, I doubt he'd take my call. We don't approach him directly, Sam said, her mind clearly working through the problem. We set a trap. Give Vanessa exactly what she wants, but in a way that exposes her to Jeffrey. Angela looked concerned. Isn't that dangerous? Less dangerous than waiting for her to make the next move. Sam replied, Right now, we have the advantage she doesn't know we're on to her. I considered the idea. It was risky, but the alternative was to sit passively while Vanessa continued her machinations. What exactly did you have in mind? I asked Sam. Her eyes gleamed with determination. Something that will show Jeffrey exactly who he married. Over the next 2 days, we prepared our plan carefully. Sam's cousin, the retired attorney, helped us draft convincing but ultimately powerless documents that appeared to give Vanessa everything she wanted access to my accounts. Power of attorney, even a deed transfer for the farmhouse. The key, he explained over video call, is that these documents contain a hidden flaw that makes them legally invalid, but it's subtle enough that someone without legal training wouldn't notice. Angela agreed to be our conduit. She would accidentally mention to Vanessa that I had been asking about how to transfer the property quickly because I was considering moving to Florida. Vanessa will see it as an opportunity, Sam predicted. She'll approach you directly, Eleanor trying to help with the paperwork. The hardest part was waiting. I spent those days exploring the farmhouse more thoroughly, discovering small touches that revealed how well Robert had known me, from the brand of coffee I preferred stocked in the kitchen to the collection of mystery novels by my favorite authors on the bedside table. In the small medical room upstairs, I found a locked cabinet. Using the keys Robert had left, I discovered it contained modern diagnostic equipment and supplies, everything I would need to offer basic care to the elderly in this rural community. There was even a framed copy of my nursing license, which Robert had apparently kept updated on my behalf all these years. The discovery brought tears to my eyes. While I had believed my nursing days were long behind me, Robert had seen a future where I might return to the profession I'd loved. On the 3rd day after our confrontation, my phone rang with an unknown number. Eleanor, it's Vanessa. I think we got off on the wrong foot the other day. Could we talk just the two of us? Her voice was honey-sweet, all traces of hostility carefully concealed. Our plan was working. Of course, Vanessa, I replied, matching her pleasant tone. I've been thinking we should clear the air. Wonderful. I'm actually not far from Willow Creek. Could I stop by this afternoon? The trap was set. Now we just needed Jeffrey to witness what happened next. I texted Sam, who was staying in town. She called, coming this afternoon. Time to contact Jeffrey. Sam's role was crucial. She would call Jeffrey under the pretense of concern, suggesting he might want to check on his mother and wife. She wouldn't accuse Vanessa directly, but would plant enough seeds of doubt to bring him to the farmhouse. As I put down my phone, I looked at Robert's photograph on the mantelpiece. "I hope we're doing the right thing," I whispered to his smiling image. "I hope there's still something of our son left to save." 3 hours later, Vanessa's sleek silver Mercedes pulled up the driveway. I watched from the window as she checked her appearance in the rearview mirror, applied fresh lipstick, and emerged from the car with a large designer handbag and what appeared to be a bottle of wine, the perfect picture of a caring daughter-in-law. I took a deep breath, thinking of the recording devices Sam had discreetly placed around the living room. Everything Vanessa said would be captured. I opened the door with a practiced smile. "Vanessa, how nice to see you. Please, come in." She air-kissed my cheek, her expensive perfume enveloping me. "Eleanor, thank you for seeing me. I brought a nice Chardonnay. I remember it's your favorite." It wasn't, actually. I preferred red wine, as anyone who knew me would recall, but I accepted the bottle with thanks. "I've been so worried about you, all alone out here," Vanessa continued, following me into the living room. Her eyes darted around, taking in every detail. "And after our misunderstanding the other day, I felt terrible." "Water under the bridge?" I said lightly, gesturing for her to sit. "Family disagreements happen." She perched on the edge of the sofa, her posture perfect. "Jeffrey wanted to come too, but he had an important meeting in the city. He sends his love." Another lie. According to Sam, Jeffrey had been incredulous when she called, insisting Vanessa was at a spa day with friends. "How thoughtful," I said. "Would you like some tea, or shall we open this wine?" "Tea is fine for now," she said with a practiced smile. "Eleanor, Angela mentioned you've been asking about property transfers. Are you thinking of selling this place already?" No pretense, straight to business. I had to admire her efficiency, if nothing else. "Not selling, exactly," I said, preparing the tea in the kitchen where she could still see me. "But I've been thinking about simplifying. At my age, managing multiple properties seems unnecessary." Multiple properties. Her interest was piqued, just as we'd anticipated. "Yes, apparently Robert left me a condo in Florida, too. I only just found out from the lawyer." This was the bait of fictional property worth even more than the farmhouse. "Florida, how lovely," Vanessa exclaimed. "Have you visited it yet?" "No, it's all happening rather quickly." I brought the tea to the coffee table. "To be honest, all this paperwork is overwhelming. Powers of attorney, deed transfers. I wish there was someone who could help me sort through it all." Vanessa's eyes gleamed with barely concealed eagerness. "Eleanor, I would be happy to help. I handle all our family paperwork. Jeffrey's hopeless with these things. Why don't you show me what you're working on? Maybe I can simplify it for you." I hesitated, as if considering her offer. "That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to burden you." "It's no burden at all." Her voice rose with enthusiasm. "We're family. We should help each other." I smiled and reached for the folder we had prepared, filled with the doctored documents. "Well, if you're sure." As I handed her the folder, I heard the sound of tires on gravel, a second vehicle approaching. Vanessa didn't notice, already engrossed in the papers before her. "These look quite straightforward," she said, scanning the power of attorney document. "You just need to sign here and here." She pointed to the signature lines with a manicured finger. "I can witness it for you." "You don't think Jeffrey should review them first?" I asked innocently. A flash of annoyance crossed her face before her smile returned. "Oh, he trusts my judgment on these matters. And really, the sooner this is settled, the better. Property transfers can take time." "I suppose you're right," I said, taking the pen she offered. "So I just sign here, yes, and initial each page." Vanessa leaned forward eagerly. Then I can take them to our lawyer to file right away. The front door opened. Jeffrey stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene, Vanessa hovering over me. The legal documents spread across the table, the pen in my hand. What the hell is going on here? His voice was deadly quiet. Vanessa froze, her face draining of color. Jeffrey, I thought you had meetings all day. Clearly, he said coldly, stepping into the room. Sam called, said I might want to check on things here. His eyes fell to the documents. What are those? Vanessa? Just some paperwork Eleanor asked for help with, she said quickly. Nothing important. Jeffrey crossed the room in 3 long strides and snatched up the power of attorney document. As he read, his jaw tightened. Nothing important, he echoed. This gives you not me, not us, but you personally power of attorney over my mother's affairs. He picked up another paper. And this transfers the deed to this property to you as well. Vanessa stood, smoothing her skirt nervously. Jeffrey, you're misunderstanding. Eleanor wants to simplify her affairs. I was just helping by having her sign everything over to you. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of anger and confusion. Mom, did you ask for this? Before I could answer, Vanessa cut in. Of course she did. She's overwhelmed. Jeffrey, I was trying to help her, help us. Help us? Jeffrey's laugh was bitter. The way you helped Dad with his medication? The room went utterly silent. Vanessa's face drained of what little color remained. What are you talking about? She whispered. Jeffrey threw the papers onto the coffee table. I found your research on heart medications. Vanessa, hidden in your desk drawer, notes about dosages, effects, what could be detected in a toxicology report. I stared at my son, hardly daring to breathe. This was an unexpected development. You went through my things. Vanessa's shock was giving way to indignation. After Sam called, I got curious. You said you were at the spa with Jennifer, but when I called her, she knew nothing about it. Jeffrey's voice was ice. So I decided to look around. Found some interesting reading material. Those were for a PR client, Vanessa said quickly. A pharmaceutical company. Don't lie to me. Jeffrey's shout made us both jump. Not anymore. I spoke to your assistant too. You don't have any pharmaceutical clients. Vanessa's composure cracked entirely. She looked from Jeffrey to me, then back again, like a cornered animal. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. We needed the money. Your father was going to cut you out of the will entirely. He told me so himself. So you decided to speed up his death. Jeffrey's voice broke on the last word. It wasn't supposed to kill him, Vanessa cried. Just make him unwell enough to step back from the company. So you could take over sooner. She reached for Jeffrey's arm. I did it for us, for our future. He recoiled from her touch as if burned. For us, you poisoned my father, tried to steal from my mother. All for us. Your investments were failing, she continued desperately. We were going to lose everything. I was pregnant. Jeffrey, I couldn't let that happen to our child. My breath caught. Pregnant Jeffrey stared at her, momentarily stunned. What did you say? I'm pregnant, Vanessa repeated, her hand moving to her still flat stomach. 3 months along, I found out just before Robert died. The revelation hung in the air between them. I could see the conflict in Jeffrey's face, revulsion at what she had done, confusion about this new information. Even if that's true, he finally said, his voice low, it doesn't excuse what you've done. Vanessa's expression hardened. So that's it. You're choosing them over me, over your child. I'm choosing what's right, Jeffrey said quietly. For once in my life, he turned to me, his eyes reflecting a turmoil I hadn't seen since he was a troubled teenager. Mom, I swear I didn't know about any of this, about Dad's medication, about her plans for you. I wanted desperately to believe him. Looking at his devastated expression, I found that I did. I believe you, I said softly. Vanessa laughed bitterly. How touching. The prodigal son returns. She gathered her handbag, her movements sharp with anger. This isn't over, Jeffrey, not by a long shot. She stormed toward the door, but paused at the threshold. When you change your mind and you will don't expect me to welcome you back with open arms. The door slammed behind her with such force that a framed photograph fell from the wall, the glass shattering on the hardwood floor. Jeffrey and I stood in silence, the broken picture between us somehow symbolic of our fractured family. I'll pay for everything she did, he finally said, his voice hollow. Whatever it takes to make this right. I stepped carefully around the broken glass and laid a hand on his arm. What happens now? Jeffrey. He looked down at me, his eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. I honestly don't know. Mom, I don't know. Outside, we heard Vanessa's car roar to life and speed down the driveway, gravel spraying in her wake. She was gone, but the damage she had caused would linger far longer than her presence. Jeffrey sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. How did I not see it all this time? I sat beside him, maintaining a small distance close enough to offer comfort, but respecting the chasm that still existed between us. Sometimes we see what we want to see, I said gently, especially when it comes to the people we love. He looked up, his expression raw with grief. Did Dad really suspect before he died? I nodded slowly. He kept a journal. He had his medication tested. And he never confronted me. The pain in Jeffrey's voice was palpable. I think he couldn't bear to believe it, I said, just as I couldn't. Jeffrey stared at the scattered papers on the coffee table. I've made such a mess of everything. Mom, the company, my marriage, our family. It's not too late to start fixing things, I said. Not for all of it, anyway. He met my gaze, a question in his eyes. Your father is gone, I continued softly. We can't change that, but you and I, we're still here. A tentative hope flickered across his face. After everything that's happened, you'd still give me another chance. You're my son, I said simply. That hasn't changed. For the first time in years, I saw genuine emotion break through Jeffrey's carefully constructed facade. His shoulders shook as he finally allowed himself to grieve for his father, for his failing marriage, for the years of distance between us. I hesitated only briefly before moving closer, placing my arm around his shoulders the way I had when he was a child, frightened by thunderstorms or disappointed by a lost baseball game. As the snow fell softly outside, blanketing Willow Creek in pristine white, I held my son and wondered about the long, difficult road ahead. There would be legal consequences to face, truths to uncover, trust to rebuild. But for now, this moment of connection was enough a fragile beginning in the aftermath of so much destruction. The weeks following Vanessa's dramatic exit were a blur of legal consultations, police statements, and difficult conversations. Jeffrey stayed at the farmhouse that first night, sleeping in the guest room that still held boxes Robert had packed with mementos from Jeffrey's childhood sports trophies, science fair ribbons, and photo albums I hadn't seen in decades. Sam moved back to her home in the city, but called daily. Angela brought fresh bread and pastries, staying for tea and offering the quiet solidarity of someone who understood loss. Martha Sullivan, my new neighbor from down the road, introduced herself with a casserole and stayed to share stories about her 30 years as a school teacher. Slowly, I was building a community in Willow Creek, something I hadn't realized I'd been missing in my old life. Jeffrey took a leave of absence from the pharmaceutical company, citing family emergency. The board was understanding, especially after we privately informed them about the ongoing investigation into Robert's death. The preliminary tests on the medication samples confirmed what we'd suspected: a compound that would gradually weaken cardiac function had been added to Robert's pills. When the detective asked if we wanted to press charges, Jeffrey and I exchanged a long look across the farmhouse kitchen table. "She's carrying my child," he said quietly after the officer stepped outside to take a call. "I know." I reached across to cover his hand with mine. "But what she did to your father." "I'm not defending her," Jeffrey clarified, his expression hardening. "What she did was unforgivable, but the baby complicates things." It did indeed. The child innocent in all this would be my grandchild, Robert's grandchild. How would it affect this unborn child to have a mother in prison for the attempted murder of its grandfather? In the end, we decided to proceed with charges. The evidence was too substantial to ignore, and as Jeffrey pointed out, Vanessa's actions had been calculated and sustained over months. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, but a deliberate plan. The district attorney was confident they had a strong case, especially after finding additional evidence during a search of Jeffrey and Vanessa's home, including a small vial of the compound matched to what was found in Robert's medication. As winter deepened, the farmhouse became our sanctuary. Jeffrey spent weekends there, gradually packing up his belongings from the city house he had shared with Vanessa. He found an apartment closer to the company headquarters and began the divorce proceedings, which Vanessa contested viciously from her parents' home in Connecticut. Her lawyer contacted me again, Jeffrey said one evening as we sat by the fireplace. "She wants to negotiate." "About the divorce?" I asked, setting aside the novel I'd been reading. "About everything." And he rubbed his temples, a gesture so reminiscent of Robert that my heart ached. "The charges, the divorce, custody of the baby." "What does she want?" "A deal. She'll plead to a lesser charge, tampering with medication rather than attempted murder. In exchange, she wants a financial settlement and shared custody once the baby is born." I studied my son's face, noticing the new lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair. At 45, he suddenly looked older, wearied by betrayal and regret. "What do you want, Jeffrey?" He stared into the fire. "I want my father back," he said softly. "I want to undo every mistake I've made over the last decade. I want—" His voice broke. "I want to be the son Dad believed I could be." I moved to sit beside him on the sofa. "Your father never stopped believing in you, even when he was worried about the path you were taking. He had good reason to worry. I was so focused on proving myself at the company, on building the life Vanessa wanted." He shook his head. "I lost sight of what actually mattered." We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. Outside, snow fell softly, adding to the blanket already covering Willow Creek. "I think," Jeffrey finally said, "I need to tell the DA we're not interested in a deal. What Vanessa did trying to harm Dad, then targeting you, she needs to face the consequences. And the baby?" A pained expression crossed his face. "I'll seek full custody. It won't be easy, but with the criminal charges against her, I think it's possible." I squeezed his hand. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you." As January turned to February, I found myself settling into a new rhythm at the farmhouse. I explored the small medical room Robert had set up, taking inventory of the supplies and equipment. One afternoon, Martha stopped by while I was organizing the space. "Planning to practice again?" she asked, leaning against the door frame. "I'm not sure," I admitted. My license is still valid. Robert apparently kept it updated, but it's been years since I worked with patients. Martha considered this. You know, we don't have much in the way of medical services out here. Nearest doctor's office is 30 minutes away. Lot of older folks in Willow Creek who have trouble making that drive, especially in winter. The seed of an idea took root. Are you suggesting? Just thinking out loud, Martha said with a smile. But a retired cardiac nurse offering basic checkups, blood pressure monitoring, medication management advice might be a real blessing to this community. The thought was both intimidating and exhilarating. Could I do it? Start over professionally at 72. That evening, I called Sam to discuss the idea. Of course you can do it, she said without hesitation. Eleanor, you were the best cardiac nurse at Mercy. That skill doesn't just disappear, but I'm rusty, and medical protocols change. So you'll update your knowledge, Sam interrupted. Take some continuing education courses online. Start small blood pressure checks, basic wellness consultations. Robert clearly thought you could do it, or he wouldn't have set up that room. She was right. Robert had always believed in me, even when I'd stopped believing in myself. The next day, I enrolled in an online refresher course for nurses returning to practice. When I told Jeffrey about my plans during his weekend visit, his face lit up with the first genuine smile I'd seen in months. Dad would be so proud, he said. He always said you were wasted as just a corporate wife. He said that I was surprised. Jeffrey nodded. Many times, he regretted that his career had overshadowed yours. He hesitated. Mom, I found something in Dad's study at the city house. I think you should have it. He retrieved a small leather-bound book from his overnight bag and handed it to me. It wasn't Robert's journal that I'd already read, but something different, older. The pages yellowed with age. What is this? I asked, opening it carefully. Dad's journal from when you first met. I found it when I was packing up his things. I stared down at the familiar handwriting, dated 52 years earlier. Met the most extraordinary woman today, Eleanor Hayes, cardiac nurse at Mercy. I was there visiting Uncle Frank after his heart attack, and she patiently explained everything about his condition, her intelligence, her compassion. I've never met anyone like her. I'm going back tomorrow, though Uncle Frank will think I've suddenly become an overly devoted nephew. Tears blurred my vision as I flipped through the pages, reading Robert's earliest impressions of me, his nervousness about our first date, his awe at my work in the hospital. Eleanor saved a patient today. Heart stopped right in front of her, and she responded without hesitation. The doctor was still en route, but she didn't wait, jumped in with CPR, called for the crash cart, took charge of the room. By the time the doctor arrived, she had the patient stabilized. I watched from the hallway, completely in awe. How did I get so lucky to find someone so brilliant, so capable? I had no idea he kept these journals. I whispered. There are more, Jeffrey said. Boxes of them. He documented everything your wedding, my birth, family vacations. There's 50 years of his thoughts about you in those journals. Mom, I closed the book, holding it against my heart. Thank you for bringing this to me. There's something else, Jeffrey said hesitantly. A letter Dad wrote to me, dated a week before he died. He left it with his lawyer, with instructions to give it to me if anything happened to him. What did it say? Jeffrey took a deep breath. It was about you, about how I needed to make sure you were taken care of. How he worried I'd been so focused on my own life that I'd forgotten what family truly means. He looked away, blinking rapidly. He was right. We sat in silence for a moment, each lost in our own thoughts about Robert, the man who had tried to protect us both, even from beyond the grave. I've been thinking, Jeffrey said finally, about what happens after all this legal business is settled, about the baby. What are you thinking? I asked gently. I want to be a good father. Better than I've been a son. He met my gaze directly. And I want my child to know their grandmother. The simple statement brought fresh tears to my eyes. I'd like that very much. As winter began to release its grip on Willow Creek, my small medical practice took shape. Martha spread the word among her extensive network of friends and former students. Angela created a small waiting area in an unused corner of her bakery for days when I saw patients in town. Sam helped me update my medical knowledge, quizzing me on new protocols and medications. My first patient was Martha's brother, a 78-year-old retired postal worker with poorly controlled hypertension. I checked his blood pressure, reviewed his medications, and suggested some adjustments to his daily routine. Nothing complex, but he left with a clearer understanding of his condition and a follow-up appointment scheduled. Word spread quickly. Soon I was seeing 3-4 people each day, mostly elderly residents with chronic conditions who appreciated not having to drive to the next town for routine care. I coordinated with their primary physicians, functioning as a local resource rather than a replacement for comprehensive medical care. The work gave me purpose, a reason to get up each morning beyond simply existing. I was using my skills again, helping others, reclaiming the professional identity I'd set aside decades ago. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against Vanessa moved forward. She eventually accepted a plea deal, a lesser charge than attempted murder, but still serious enough to carry jail time. As part of the agreement, she would begin her sentence after the baby was born. Jeffrey threw himself into preparations for single fatherhood with the same intensity he'd once reserved for corporate acquisitions. He converted the second bedroom of his apartment into a nursery, attended parenting classes, and read every book on child development he could find. I never thought I'd be doing this alone, he admitted during one of his weekend visits. Vanessa and I had talked about children, but it was always something for the future. You're not alone, I reminded him. You have me. His smile was grateful, if tired. I'm counting on that. Mom, I'm going to need all the help I can get. In late April, as the trees around the farmhouse burst into tender green leaves, Sam came to stay for a long weekend. We sat on the porch swing, watching a pair of cardinals build a nest in the maple tree. You seem happy, she observed, studying my face. Peaceful. I am, I realized with some surprise. Despite everything that's happened, I feel more myself than I have in years. Robert would be pleased, Sam said. This is what he wanted for you, a life that's truly yours. I thought about the journals Jeffrey had brought me, about Robert's pride in my nursing career, his regret that I'd set it aside. Had he known, somehow, that I would find my way back to it? I've been thinking about Robert a lot lately, I admitted. About our marriage, the choices we both made. Regrets, Sam asked gently. Some, I acknowledged. I wish we'd talked more openly. I wish I hadn't been so willing to make myself smaller to accommodate his big life. But I wouldn't trade the good parts raising Jeffrey, the love we shared, the life we built together. I gestured around at the farmhouse, the blossoming garden. Even this Robert's final gift to me came from a place of deep love. Sam nodded thoughtfully. The best marriages aren't perfect. They're just between two people who refuse to give up on each other. The wisdom of her words stayed with me as spring deepened into early summer. My small practice continued to grow, and I found myself becoming an integral part of the Willow Creek community. I joined the town council's health committee, attended local events, and even helped organize a health fair in the community center. Jeffrey called one evening in June, his voice tense. Vanessa had the baby, a boy. My breath caught. Is he healthy? Yes, 7 pounds, 8 ounces. They're both doing well. A pause. I'm at the hospital now. Have you seen him yet? Not yet. I I wasn't sure what to do, what to feel. I understood his conflicted emotions. This child was born of a relationship now irrevocably broken, to a mother who had committed terrible acts. Yet he was also an innocent, a new life. Jeffrey's son. Go see him, I said softly. Whatever complicated feelings you have about Vanessa, this child is yours. He deserves to know his father from the very beginning. 3 hours later, Jeffrey called again. This time, his voice was transformed, filled with wonder. Mom, he's perfect. Tiny fingernails, a full head of dark hair. He wrapped his hand around my finger and just held on. I smiled through my tears. What's his name? A slight hesitation. I was thinking, Robert, Robert Wilson Jr., the name of the grandfather he would never meet. It's perfect, I whispered. 2 days later, Jeffrey brought baby Robert to the farmhouse. I waited on the porch, my heart racing with anticipation. When Jeffrey's car pulled into the driveway, I hurried down the steps, eager for my first glimpse of my grandson. Jeffrey emerged from the car, carefully cradling a small bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. His face was transformed, the cynical corporate executive replaced by an awestruck new father. Mom, he said softly, approaching the porch. Meet Robert. He placed the baby in my arms, and I looked down into a tiny face that somehow combined features of both Jeffrey and Robert Sr. The same determined chin, the same thoughtful brow. His eyes were the deep blue of all newborns, but I imagined they might someday turn hazel like his father's, like mine. Hello, little one, I whispered. I'm your grandmother. As if in response, the baby's eyes opened, staring up at me with that unfocused newborn gaze that nonetheless seems to look straight into your soul. That night, Jeffrey stayed at the farmhouse, the portable bassinet set up beside his bed. I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of the baby's hungry cries, followed by Jeffrey's gentle murmurs as he prepared a bottle in the kitchen. I found them in the living room, Jeffrey in the rocking chair I'd placed by the window. Little Robert nestled in the crook of his arm as he took the bottle. Sorry if we woke you, Jeffrey said, looking up. Don't be. I sat on the sofa, watching them. I remember those middle-of-the-night feedings with you. Your father would walk you around the living room for hours when you were colicky. Jeffrey looked surprised. Dad did that. Oh, yes. He was wonderful with you when you were a baby. He used to say it was the only time you were completely still, when you were sleeping on his chest. A shadow crossed Jeffrey's face. I wish I had more memories like that with him. Somewhere along the way, we just lost each other. You were more alike than either of you realized, I said gently. Both stubborn, both determined to do things your own way. I don't want to make the same mistakes with my son, Jeffrey said, looking down at the baby. I want him to always know how much I love him, how proud I am of him no matter what path he chooses. You will, I assured him. You're already a wonderful father. As summer bloomed across Willow Creek, our lives settled into a new pattern. Jeffrey rented a small house in town, close enough to commute to the city for work, but allowing him to be part of the community where his son would grow up. Vanessa began serving her sentence, having agreed to Jeffrey's terms for full custody with supervised visitation after her release. My medical practice continued to thrive, with Martha now serving as my unofficial appointment scheduler and community liaison. Angela's Bakery became a social hub where I often met with patients informally, addressing their concerns over coffee and pastries. Sam visited frequently, bringing medical journals and updates from our old colleagues at Mercy Hospital. One evening in late July, I sat alone on the porch as twilight descended over the fields. The fireflies were just beginning to emerge, their gentle lights blinking on and off among the tall grasses. In the distance, I could hear the community band practicing in the town square, their music drifting on the warm summer breeze. I thought of Robert, wondering what he would think of our lives now. Would he be pleased with the community I'd found, with Jeffrey's transformation into a devoted father, with my return to nursing? However modest the scale, I closed my eyes, imagining him beside me on the porch swing, his hand warm in mine as it had been for 50 years. "We're okay, Robert," I whispered to the evening air. "You can rest easy. We found our way." The next morning, I woke to the sound of car doors closing. Looking out my bedroom window, I saw Jeffrey's car in the driveway, baby Robert in his carrier, and Sam and Angela unloading what appeared to be grocery bags. Martha arrived moments later, carrying a large casserole dish. Confused, I hurried downstairs and opened the front door. "What's going on?" I asked as they all trooped up to the porch. Jeffrey grinned, the carefree smile of his youth temporarily returning. "We're having a party." "A party what for?" "Your birthday, Eleanor," Angela said, as if it were obvious. I blinked in surprise. With everything that had happened, I'd completely forgotten my own birthday. "We thought you deserved a proper celebration," Sam explained, carrying her bags into the kitchen. 73 is a significant number, after all. "Is it?" I laughed, following them inside. "Absolutely," Martha declared. "It's the age when remarkable women like you get second chances." As they bustled around the kitchen, setting up for what was clearly going to be an elaborate lunch, I held baby Robert, who gazed up at me with increasingly alert eyes. At 3 months old, he was already showing signs of the Wilson determination, focusing intently on faces, grasping toys with purpose, observing everything with curious attention. "Your grandfather would have adored you," I told him softly. "He would have taught you about science and medicine, taken you fishing at the lake, shown you how to identify every constellation in the night sky." The baby cooed in response, his tiny hand wrapping around my finger with surprising strength. Later, as we all gathered around the dining table Robert had selected with such care for the farmhouse, I looked at the faces surrounding me: Jeffrey, Sam, Angela, Martha, baby Robert in his portable seat. Not the family I had expected to have at this stage of my life, but a family nonetheless. "Before we eat," Jeffrey said, raising his glass, "I'd like to propose a toast to Mom, who taught me it's never too late to rebuild what's broken, to reclaim what's lost, to become the person you were meant to be." "To Eleanor," the others echoed, raising their glasses, as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, warming the polished wood of the table and illuminating the faces of those I had come to love. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for Robert's foresight in creating this sanctuary, for the friends who had become family, for my son's hard-won wisdom, for the tiny grandson who represented our future, and for the woman I had rediscovered within myself: the nurse, the friend, the mother, the survivor, the woman who had found her voice and her purpose when she least expected to. "Thank you all," I said, my voice steady and sure, "for helping me find my way home." That evening, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet once more, I took Robert's journal out to the porch swing, opening to the final entry. I read his last written words to me again, December 2nd. "The trust for Eleanor is finalized. The farmhouse is ready. I've instructed Angela to watch for Eleanor if anything happens to me. I should tell Eleanor everything, but I can't bear to destroy her relationship with Jeffrey. Perhaps I'm a coward, or perhaps I'm trying to protect her one last time. If I'm wrong about all this, she need never know. But if I'm right," the entry ended there, unfinished like so much in life. But unlike before, the unfinished nature of it no longer felt like an open wound. Instead, It seemed like an invitation to write the next chapter myself, to continue the story in my own hand. I closed the journal and looked out at the fireflies dancing above the fields, their lights blinking like stars fallen to earth. From town came the distant sound of the community band playing their final number of the evening, the notes clear and sweet in the summer air. "What would you do if you were in my place?" I asked the stars above. "Have you ever been through something similar?" Comment below. And don't forget to check out 2 other stories that are channel favorites. I'm so grateful you joined me for this journey. The future stretched before me, uncertain in its details, but rich with possibility. I had lost much. It was true. But I had also found more than I ever expected: strength I didn't know I possessed, a community that valued what I could offer, a second chance with my son, and the precious gift of a grandchild to love. As Robert had written so long ago, it's time you put yourself first. At last, I understood what he meant. Not selfishness, but self-worth. Not isolation, but independence. Not an ending, but a beginning. And as the first star appeared in the darkening sky, I made a silent promise to Robert, to Jeffrey, to baby Robert, and most importantly, to myself. This time, I would live life on my own terms. This time, I would stand tall in my own light. This time, I would write my own story.